Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name is Amy, and in today's video we're going to be talking about what oil painting materials I use, how I use them, and what you should use if you want to be an oil painter. I've been oil painting for about 4 years now, but I have been very heavily invested in art just this past year. I mainly view it as a full-time job, as the majority of my paintings I create to sell and show in galleries. I'm a very traditionally inspired artist. That means the methods I use, the technique, the style is very classical in nature and classically inspired. But for this video, I'll start out with the very basics. What do I use when I paint? First things first, we need a surface to paint on. And there are so many different types of surfaces, such as stretched canvas or fabric, which is the most popular, canvas or linen board, and masonite board. These all have different textures, and it's all up to personal preference on how smooth or how toothy you'd like to paint on. I generally stick to stretched canvas or canvas board. Boards are very helpful because they don't tear and they're easy to transport. But if you want to go super large, then your best bet is a stretched canvas like the ones behind me. Also note that canvases can be very expensive, especially the higher quality you get. Unless there's no super crazy sale at like Michael's or whatever, you're generally going to be spending about $50 to $100 or even more for a canvas. Obviously, the bigger you go, the more expensive it is, but they're still generally a lot more expensive than boards. And this is where masonite can come in handy. It's super cheap, it's like $10 at Lowe's for like a super like 48 inches board, and you can have it cut down as small as you want, and you can have 10 boards from just $10. This is a very cost-effective method and is great for studies that you don't want to spend top dollar on. These are some examples of some boards I have. This is a masonite board I have. This is a canvas board. I primed it with oil. And then also I want to share these. These are from Raymar. Now Raymar is probably the most expensive panels you can get, but I got, they sell sample packs. I think all this was like $30, I think. But you get so many of their different types, so you can really test out, see if you like a smoother, like almost plasticky kind of surface or super like fabric kind of texture. So it's good that they have samples like that. Next up, we have our star of the show, the paint. I just want to let you know that this is all my personal opinion. I'm not a professional painter or anything. This is just what I use and what I have been using since I started. I still want to branch out and try out other brands, but this is what I use currently. The brands I use are Winsor & Newton, Gamblin, Grumbacher, Williamsburg, Richardson, and Rembrandt. Now, oil paints are notoriously expensive, like one of the most expensive paints you can get. So if you're just starting out, I recommend not getting the most expensive tube you can find. Now, Winsor & Newton has a student grade version called Winton, which is really good if you're just starting out. And other brands have student grade versions too, not just Winsor & Newton. I think it's still very good quality for the price. Of course, it's cheaper. It's not going to be as great a quality, but it's still good for what you get. The difference between student grade paints versus professional grade is that student grades usually don't have as much pigment in them and are usually a little bit more transparent and don't have as much body, but they are still great to start out with. Then if you're just starting out, like you've never touched oil paint in your life, then I recommend just starting out painting in black and white. You only have to buy 2 tubes, and it's great to help you learn value and get the hang of this new medium. That's what I did, and it was very helpful. I want to make another video strictly about color palettes, but for this video, I just suggest using limited palettes or mixing your own colors, so you don't want to empty like all your wallets on getting tubes and tubes of different colors of paint. Also, it's a good challenge to learn color mixing and how to view color as an artist. So for beginners, the colors that I do highly recommend are titanium white, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and ivory black. As you can tell, these are mainly all primaries with some browns and black and white, obviously. That'll help you learn color mixing through all of these. Now we're on to brushes. Here we begin. Actually, this is where I expose myself. I actually only use cheap craft store brushes. Now, I do not recommend using the cheapest ones you can find, like the ones that after one paint stroke, like all the hairs fall out. I obviously don't recommend those, but I found some very good quality like sets for like $10 at Michael's. I go to Michael's a lot, but you have to make sure that they can withstand the oil paint because oil paint is a more denser medium, and especially if you paint with chemicals, though I do not recommend painting with chemicals, but a lot of artists do. But yeah, don't have the misconception that you have to pay $50 for a set of brushes because I've never even done that before. I would like to, but I don't have the money for that, and obviously no one has the money for that. But yeah, you can find some very good cheap brushes. Now there are two types of brushes that you can use. There's bristle and synthetic brushes. Now bristles are good for holding a lot of paint and they give you that brush strokey kind of look. Synthetic brushes are good for a softer look. They obviously can't hold as much paint, but they are my favorite types to use. Now I won't get into brush shapes because I don't really know much about any of them and their technicalities. I'm a real artist, I swear. But I do recommend having different sizes like super large, medium, and then like a tiny detail brush. Next, we'll talk about mediums. Now there are tons and tons of different types of mediums. The most popular ones are linseed oil, walnut oil, Gamsol, and Galkid. So many other ones. I personally use the ones from Chelsea Classical Studio. They're all natural, made from lavender oil. They have no chemicals, so they're not toxic and perfectly safe. And that is the one big thing you need to be careful about when you begin oil painting. You don't just have to make sure it's not in contact with your skin for a long period of time, but you also have to make sure you're not breathing it in excessively, you're painting in a well-ventilated area, because if you don't, then this will lead to very, very terrible health conditions down the line. Please don't get scared away, I promise oil painting is very cool. And that's why I use natural remedies now, like lavender spike oil. But it is very expensive and I don't expect you to spend $40 on a little bottle when you're just starting out. But I do recommend using either walnut oil or linseed oil, something thicker, and then a thinner consistency like Gamsol for washes or thinner layers. And Gameblend also makes a type of solvent-free gel, which is what I use when I started out too. Now let's talk about palettes. And this is very much up to you personally and what you feel most comfortable using, but I'll just list off the different kinds if you're not sure where to begin with. Glass is the most popular kind used in the oil painting world. It's super easy to use because you just have to use a scraper to scrape off the paint and it's good as new. I usually make my own glass palettes. You can get a super cheap frame from an art store for like $8 or $10. Just take out the glass. Usually artists will paint the backside either mid-gray or beige just to create like a neutral undertone. And then also you have to be very careful because the glass is very sharp. I'll just cover the corners all around the edges with a thick tape. And then I'll set it in a plastic container with a lid on top. Please don't make fun of me, but this is my palette currently. Yeah, I was painting a blue painting, so it's just covered in blue paint right now. Other types of palettes are wood palettes and plastic palettes, but obviously they're a lot harder to clean off. And if you want the most cost-effective method, there are paper plates and wax paper. And lastly, we're in our miscellaneous category. Now this stuff is just as important, but they didn't fit in with the other sections. Firstly, we have soap. Wash your brushes, you nasty. I use a lavender and olive oil soap bar, but dish soap works just as well. Just make sure your brushes are completely dry before you paint again because, as we all know, water and oil do not mix. Good brush care will make your brushes last longer, so you don't have to keep buying new brushes, like me. Man, I need to take my own advice. I wash my brushes like once a month. But I do clean off the paint after every time though. I just don't use soap all the time. And this is where we lead into our next thing, Terpenoid Natural. Bam! I will live and die by this stuff. On Blick Art, the product reads, Terpenoid Natural is an alternative to traditional solvents for those concerned about health, safety, or environmental issues. Terpenoid Natural is a highly effective brush cleaner and conditioner that is specially formulated with organic ingredients to be non-toxic and non-flammable. I put it in a brush cleaning jar and let my brushes sit in there after I'm done using them. It even works if your brushes have hardened a little bit. You just let them sit in there overnight and the paint will come right off. Yeah, I'm using a lot of graphics. I should show more of my own stuff, but my stuff is covered in paint and I don't feel like showing it and going upstairs and getting it. Next are palette knives. I don't really use them that much, but they're very good for mixing paint or doing paintings with palette knives. Next are scrapers. I mentioned them earlier, but they are great for cleaning off your glass palettes. And our final thing of art supply is gloves. Gloves, baby, gloves. Gloves are cool. Yes, please use caution when using oil paints. A lot of the colors, especially the cadmiums, are very dangerous when in contact with your skin. Please consider the right amount of precautions before you begin painting. I just want to keep you lovely safe. And those are the materials I use. I hope this was of some help for those who don't know where to begin or what to get when starting out. If I did mention something that you think is very helpful, please comment below what you think those things are. I'll be making some more videos coming up about oil painting tips, so please consider subscribing if you haven't already, just so you don't miss the next video. I hope this has helped some of you spark the urge to start oil painting because it is truly a great medium that you can make some wonderful pieces with. It is my all-time favorite medium and has definitely helped me find my own voice in art. And that is it for the video. Thank you so much for watching.